Hello, everyone. 안녕하세요. This is a Korean way. Okay. Thank you for you all for coming to the Korea Society of Gallery Talk to Contemporary Printmaking this evening. My name is Jahi Yu. I'm a part of staff of here, the Korea Society, and I'm the one who curated our current exhibition. And I'm also, yes, I'm a printmaker myself as well. Okay. So tonight we're going to learn about the fascinating history of printmaking in Asia and the West from Professor Bruce Waldman. He'll explain how printmaking evolved from the simple beginnings into today's complex techniques and genres through the reference to many of the Korean and American prints show in Made in New York, Made in Seoul, which is the exhibition currently at the Korea Society Gallery. He also mentioned how these artists in Asia and the West, how they were influenced by each other and developed on their artwork. Okay, so now our speaker for tonight, Professor Bruce Waldman. Well, he's an artist and master print and the curator. Yes, he did a lot of good exhibition and educator, you name it. Okay, since his resume is so thick with his all the so many art exhibition and many activities, it looks like yes, almost like a yellow pages. Okay, so I'm going to just tell you briefly about him. Okay. He has been teaching at the School of Visual Art for more than 30 years. Wow. And also teaches at the Westchester Community College State University of New York and the College of New Rochelle. And he's a member of the Board of Governors of the Robert Blackburn Printmaking Workshop and director of the New York Society of Etchers. And Bruce Waldman exhibited extensively in New York City and beyond. His prints are in the permanent collection of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the New York Public Library, the Art Institute of Chicago, and the New York Historical Society, the Bronx Zoological Museum, the Royal Collection London, and the Library of Congress Washington, D.C., and the New York Transit Museum. Yes, it's a lot. But to me, above all, he's such a good friend of inspiration of so many artists, right? Now, ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce Professor Bruce Waldman.
Hi, everybody. I know some of you. Thanks for coming. Okay, first of all, I want to make sure I have this. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I want to thank Jahi. Jahi, is the person who organized this exhibition and, did all of the work, like setting it up and that. And I've curated a number of shows. It's a lot of work. It's complicated and to pull all the parts together. And I think she really did a great job. And, I'm honored that I was asked to get involved with this. I also want to thank Daniel Levine and Seho Kim and Peter, because they help with organizing and all the details also. Okay. And I'd also like just to say, I was in Korea last summer. I was teaching art on the campus of Korea University for over a week. And I had never been in Korea before. I really had no idea what it was like there. And I just want to say that I have a really deep respect for Korean culture. I've had a lot of Korean students for some reason. There's a lot of Korean art students at the School of Visual Arts. Sometimes my undergraduate class is half. This last semester, it was actually more than 60% of my students were Korean, So and this has been going on for over 10 years now. So, I had a kind of familiarity with Korean culture through my students. Some of them I got very close with. Actually, a number of them, when I was teaching in Korea, came to the class because they were home for the summer. It was kind of touching. But I just think that Seoul is an amazing city, and I think that amazing what people have made of South Korea. It's an incredible country, All right. Okay, as far as the show goes, what we basically have is the show's it's kind of, if you looked in the gallery and looked at the works, it's contemporary artists from Korea and from America. But they're interspersed. We didn't hang it where the Korean artists are on one side of the wall and the American artists are on the other. They're kind of interspersed with each other in a way that we felt made sense from the point of view of style and also from an aesthetic point of view. And also that relates to, what I want to talk about tonight, which I just about art and art education in the world today. I'm going to show some slides. I'm going to start out with some of the old classic prints that came out of Europe and came out of Asia. And from looking at the works, you can see, and I'll point out certain pieces that are in the show where you can see a direct influence from traditional art. Artists today are very lucky because, when I was in art school on my own, I discovered, Asian landscape painting and woodblock prints, which I never saw, I was never exposed to, and I became fascinated with them. Kids who go to school today, both in Asia and in the United States, are lucky because there's no such a thing as Eastern and Western art anymore. There's just art. And a kid going to school today, if they're in Seoul or in New York or in Chicago, they're all exposed to the great art that came out of Asia and the West. And then they have the freedom to choose the kind of style that they want to work in, like the work that talks to them. So in a way, right now, world art is one universal language. And as far as the works in the show, I think it's interesting that some of the Korean artists in the show, you can see they have a very specific, strong influence from printmaking that came out of Europe. And some of the Americans were very influenced by Asian art. So they really have a tremendous advantage. Okay. That's an advantage, no? So art is a universal language. And now we're lucky because we're all exposed to all of it. And then we can choose what speaks to us, and we can even take parts from one and the other and put them together, so. Okay, let's see if I'm functional on this. This is an etching. It's by Rembrandt. Also, etching, woodblock, etching and lithography, and in particular etching, because it's older, really came out of Middle Europe. It was developed in Middle Europe, and the great woodblock prints came out of Asia. So we're going to start out. This is Rembrandt. This is an etching that was done just with the simplest technique, which was just line through hard ground. You may or may not know what that is, but it's the most basic etching technique. When you look at the show, there's a real kaleidoscope of techniques. But in the West, traditionally, etching was a black and white media, and it was really used just to develop ideas. Rembrandt, he actually did a lot of his etchings were kind of working sketches and ideas for his paintings. This is also a Rembrandt. The previous one, this one is usually up on the walls at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in the permanent print collection. It's really amazing. This is Goya. In the time of Rembrandt, the only technique that existed was line through hard ground, which is the way this print was done. You can see in the Goya, the kind of gray tonal area is a technique called aquatint. In the time of Rembrandt, that didn't exist. So Goya had the use of line work and aquatint, which is like elegant line work and soft tones, kind of soft flat tones. But still, they were basically working with printmaking as a black and white media. This is Goya also. A lot of Goya's works, they're very political. Art, you can do with it what you want. A lot of Rembrandt, the subject of a lot of Rembrandt's etchings are from the Bible. And a lot of Goya's works are political statements. And some of the artists in the show now are actually making political statements also. This is a very famous print of Goya's. This is Katie Kollwitz. Katie Kollwitz was more contemporary. She was a German printmaker. She was unfortunate in that she was born in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was born in Germany. She lived through World War II, and she was put in one of those camps. So she saw like a lot of horrible things that human beings did to each other, and she saw the dark side of the human psyche, and felt it. And actually, I think her husband and one of her sons between World War I and World War II died. She did survive the war. I think she died around 1950, but she was always kind of a humanitarian and empathized with the people on the bottom, the people on the wrong side. A lot of her prints are about like young children being yanked out of mother's arms, dying children by the angel of death and things like that. They're very powerful. This is a woodblock by Katie Kollwitz. Woodblock, in the way that it was used in Europe, it has a kind of innate raw graphic power to it. If it's worked in black and white, if you're familiar with the German Expressionists, they're phenomenal printmakers. Actually, there was a show at the Museum of Modern Art a few years ago, the German Expressionists. It was like, it had all of the greatest ones, including her. She was the last. I mean, after I came out of the show, it was hard for me to walk. It's like, it really shakes you up. It's powerful, powerful stuff. So this is a woodblock print. That's either a drawing or a lithograph by Katie Kollwitz. She saw lots of children who wish they were someplace else, Again, this is a woodblock print. This is an etching. That's her self-portrait. This is like the masses of poor people rising up against the power structure that suppressed them. It's an old theme in Western art. An etching. That's the angel of death taking a child from a mother. I love that piece. Or death. You don't want to say angel. That's death taking a child from a mother. This is a self-portrait of her later in life. It's a woodblock print. Here's Picasso. Okay, Picasso, we can lighten up a little bit now. It's, Picasso knew how to have a good time. He got the most out of his life, So there's a kind of, and by the way, I'm 99, Picasso was always doing portraits of Rembrandt. It's kind of interesting because they lived 400 or 500 years apart. But it's almost like Picasso was having a conversation with Rembrandt, even though Rembrandt had been dead for a long time. And he would do these kind of humorous, comical portraits of Rembrandt that really looked just like him, but he was kind of making fun of him. And I think that's Rembrandt on the right. Okay, this is one of the great classic woodblock prints that came out of Asia. You can see the sensibility is different. Again, this is a woodblock print. Let me go back a little bit, and that's a woodblock print. So in Europe, that's basically the same technique. The technique in Europe was simplified. It was basically printed one time, one color, black and white, and it was really for power. There's a kind of elegance, beautiful elegance in woodblock prints from Asia. These are multi-blocks, so these can be, actually there are some printmakers who sometimes show in the New York Society of Etchers exhibitions who do woodblocks. And we had a show at the New York Transit Museum a number of years ago, and there was, how many woodblocks? 12. By the way, don't kill me, okay, you're just gonna kill me. Okay, I won't do it, I promise. But they had the blocks. Actually, each block is printed in a color. Then the artist works further on the block and synchronizes it and prints the same print back on the same block. That's the way it's done, right? Okay, thank you. And so you can end up with like up to 18 colors. That's the way these prints are made. Now you can see that there's a real difference in feel between the great classic art that came out of Asia and that came out of Europe. And what's great about the artists today who go to school is they're exposed to all of it. So they have all of it at their fingertips. It's a little fuzzy, but beautiful prints, really. Okay, this is our show. This gal, her name's Moira McCall. That's a monoprint. So again, in the show, there's a zillion different, not a zillion, but there's numerous techniques, different techniques that are used. Hundreds of years ago, these techniques didn't exist. Printmaking in the contemporary world has, what started out being very simple has become very complicated. Printmaking originally in the West, not in Asia, was basically a black and white media for working out ideas and making like powerful statements. Today, there are numerous techniques, multi-plate, multi-color, with all of the, like etching, silkscreen, lithography, woodblock, and this is a monoprint. The monoprint is basically a print painting. It's oil-based inks, which are basically the same as oil paints. Just the consistency is harder, and the oil, the inks are applied to plexiglass and then run through an etching press with a piece of printmaking paper on it. So the image is transferred from the plexiglass onto the paper. So it's basically a print painting. And unlike other printmaking techniques, printmaking was invented because it's, hundreds of years ago, it was the only way people could make multiple images. So there were a lot of practical reasons why it was if you go to the Met and look at books that were made in Europe in the 1500s or the 1600s, those pages are printed out page at a time and then hand bound together in a book because there were no printing companies like we have now and there was no computer technology. So basically printmaking was a practical way of making art accessible to many people. And also by making it accessible, it also made it affordable because if you have one painting, it's thousands and thousands of dollars, but if you have a print, and you can pull an edition of 100 or a woodblock, you might be able to get 500 or 1,000. All of a sudden, everybody can afford to buy one because there's multiple copies. Monoprint is a bit of a contradiction in terms because monoprint is a one print. And in the modern age where we have printing companies and computer technology, we don't need printmaking to make books anymore. This gal is originally from Belgium. It's a two-plate etching. It's just beautiful. I love this. He looks like he's going to end up inside the tiger's stomach, eh? That doesn't look like a very comfortable place to be. This is a beautiful print, and I think the person who created this piece is American, and I think you can really clearly see the influence of Asian art. So again, that gets back to there is no Asian and Western art anymore. There's just art. And it's all available, and you can take the parts that you find personally interesting. But I think it's a beautiful piece, and I think it's a monoprint. It's a monoprint, okay. This gentleman obviously was very influenced by Goya and some like the political statements. This is a kind of a, it's actually a lithograph. I think it's two-plate. And these guys don't look like they're having very much fun, But that's a la Goya. Actually, this is one of Jahi's prints. You can see, Jahi is originally from Korea. You can see the influence of like Goya and Katie Kollwitz and Rembrandt on Jahi. So again, that gets to the whole thing about cross-cultural, which is superior to singular culture because it's more expansive and you have more choices. And these are very powerful kind of powerful human condition, about the human condition, really get into the heart and soul of it, So again, we have the freedom to do with our art what we want. This is an elegant, beautiful, kind of beautiful landscape, a kind of a, and kind of has a meditative feel to it. And this is really dealing with the dark side of the human condition. So then you can do with your art what you want. And if you're familiar with the techniques, you would pick the technique that is going to enhance the feeling you want. This is Jahi's also, very powerful. This is a print by a gentleman named Stephen Fredericks. He's actually the original founder and creator of the New York Society of Etchers, which is a fabulous organization for promoting prints in the United States. And this print, to my knowledge, is soft ground. Stephen's a master of soft ground. And I think there was a transparent color roll-up on that. Is that correct? Okay. Beautiful. This is a woman named Sarah Sears. who really also deals with the human condition. And I think it's a very powerful piece. This is hers also. And this is hers also. Yeah. It's kind of like the spirit of the horse. So it's not just the outside, but it's the inside also. Try to capture something of that. This gentleman is actually a very, very famous illustrator. I wanted to show this piece because I think you can see the relationship with the Picasso a little bit. He's a fabulous illustrator, but you can see like the way he's working with line work, again, with that kind of simplicity of line. You remember you want me to go back, or you remember what the Picasso looked like? Okay. This gentleman is a very accomplished etcher. Actually, this is interesting. I can't believe all right, I'm just going to hide this. I didn't turn it over. See what happens after all those years of printmaking. This guy is he's a master technician with the etching, and he's actually invited to China every year. And he makes his etchings in China. I'll turn it off as soon as it stops. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Because actually the etchers in China are fascinated with his technique and how he does them. So he goes to China. He's brought by the Chinese government, and he just creates a series of images. And then the Chinese government takes the images into their collection, and all of these established etchers in China just study and watch him work. It's a nice thing. He teaches at Kutztown State College, Pennsylvania. All right, that's mine. I don't know if you ever read Death of a Salesman, but that was a poster in a book jacket. Willy Loman, poor old Willy Loman. Anyway, that was on a poster. That's an etching. It's two colors. The technique is pretty simple, though. That I had to put in because it's in the show. That's the kind of guy, if you get out of a party at 3 o'clock in the morning in New York City in the Lower East Side, you don't want to run into a guy who looks like that. It's called the stalker. This I put in. This is a monoprint. That's a different technique. I just wanted to put one monoprint in because it's more like a painting. And actually, this monoprint. This is a book that I wrote about how to draw. That's going to be out in a couple of weeks, actually, and it's got a lot of my stuff in it. But they put it on the cover, so I thought I would show you just the way it reproduced. What's interesting about a printmaking, which was originally invented to make multiples, as the only way you could make multiples. To me, I'm also as an illustrator, working with printmaking is the original only possibility for like making books. And in the contemporary world, if you use a printmaking as an illustration technique, it's basically using the original Stone Age technique and then incorporating it into the modern printmaking, technological printmaking. So here's a print that then is printed in a book as a print. I don't know if you find that interesting or not, but I found that fascinating. All right, this is Chung-Woo Nam. He's the curator of the Korean artists here. He's a Tamarind master printer, and beautiful. He's a technical master, and he does some complex color prints. I assumed that maybe I read the titles. If he was here, I would have asked him exactly what was going on in his mind. But I think that's the place that he lives. That's his home. And it's kind of abstracted the way it's broken up into 3 panels, and yet the drawing in the central panel is very classical. So that's a case of classical and modern and East-West art. This is his also. These I found interesting. Again, I wish I would ask him what he meant by these. Both of these, it's got people dancing. These people are dancing in front of, I guess that's the palace in China. No? Is that the Emperor's Palace or whatever? I was there. I don't remember though. But I guess that's an American flag. So I just interpreted it as South Korea presenting itself to America and to China. I don't know if that's correct or not, but it does fall in the realm of political art. So there's America. Well, let's go back. And there's China. This is a beautiful print that came in on the Korean side. It really just elegant. And again, I think this combines, it's multi-plate. There'll be a different color for each plate. And it combines a kind of elegance of color and line that's, very typical in traditional Asian art, also with Western techniques too. So again, it's just beautiful. I think that's a multi-plate etching. Yes. It's I don't remember the name. It's one of the Korean artists, but it's hanging in. I'm sure the name is. Some of the names were in Korean, so I can't read it. So maybe you could tell me who did it. This is also one of the Korean artists. I love this piece. This is also done. It's an etching, and it's done with traditional line through hard ground like Rembrandt. This is also one of the Korean artists, and to me, this is beautiful color. And it's complex. It's possibly a multi-plate etching, and it also has a kind of a contemporary modern feel to it. So I find this interesting. Again, this mixes the influences from all the different places, and that's it. So did I miss it? Did I forget anything? It's well, thanks. I also want to say I didn't do this by myself. I mean, Stephen Fredericks helped curate and organize the show, and I think he's not in the room now, so he can't get mad at me. And Russ Spatovsky, who's the founder of Carrier Pigeon Magazine. The three of us really worked on it, along with Jahi and the whole team here. And it's an honor for me, so thank you. All right.
Well, thank you so much. It was very, very interesting and useful lecture. So now we're going to open for Q&A to audience. So if anyone that want to speak to him or a question, then please raise your hand and you can ask the Bruce. Okay, Bruce. So you can go. All right.
Okay. Yes.
My question is, can you use black and white negatives for printing? Okay.
Yeah.
One more time. I was a photographer, black and white photographer. Then I stopped. Is it possible to use black and white negatives
With print? Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. You can combine photography with printmaking. For example, with etching, it's called a photo etching. What they do is they take an etching plate, either zinc or copper, and they put a photo emulsion on the surface of it. And if you have a photograph that you like, you can lay the negative. It can be on acetate or the negative on top of the photosensitized plate, and you shoot it with a light. And then there's a process where you aquatint the plate and soak it in the acid, and your photographic image actually becomes engraved in the metal. There's a lot of people doing it, and you can also reverse it. If you want to flip it upside down, you just flip the negative. You can make it backwards if you want. And the nice thing about that is the photo process is strictly a modern technique, and you can combine it with all traditional techniques. Once you get your photo etching, your photo image in the metal, then you can attack it with traditional printmaking techniques right on top of it. So you can paint hard ground on top of it. You could put line work, scrape things away, and you could also do like a photo montage. And you also can do 2 or 3 plates with color. I mean, I actually know a couple of guys who really do they're printmakers, but they're printmakers who are starting from the starting point is photography. And it's an integration of the two. So if you're a photographer and you're curious, I mean, that's a real natural mix. Is photography and printmaking, And also photography, you can make multiples. Again, it gets back to the whole thing of multiples.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Your Willy Loman print, the print you made for Willy Loman.
Yeah.
Were you paid for that? Was it ever used?
You're damn right I was paid for it. I'm sorry. It's like...
But where was it used? Was it used as
Well, it was like, it was on the book cover, and then it was initially it was commissioned by Penguin Books. That was a long time ago.
Okay, but it's fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I have one other question based on the previous question. If people are making prints to do what they're doing, do they have to use, I'll put it this way, the old-fashioned camera to get the negative, to produce the print, to use the, you know what I'm saying. I don't know what I'm talking about. But I'm asking, do you have to use the old-fashioned camera as opposed to a digital camera to do and produce the prints today?
You mean if you want to combine it with like photo etching? If you want to
Yes,
combine
photo
photography?
etching,
The
yes.
truth is, I don't know that much about photography, to tell you
Okay.
the truth. But the thing is, I know enough to take a photograph. You know what I mean? It really doesn't matter. If you want to use a Hasselblad or what they used to use, have the Nikon or the Contemporary. It doesn't make a damn bit of
Yeah,
difference.
but a
When you
digital camera doesn't produce a negative.
Yeah, but you can print it out of a computer on a piece of acetate, and it's the same thing.
Oh, okay. I
Just
didn't
print it
know
out on
that.
acetate because in order to turn it into a photo etching, all you need is an image, your photograph, no matter how it's taken, on either a negative or on a piece of acetate or something that's clear.
Oh, okay.
So, like, you can take a picture with a digital camera, put acetate in your printer, print it out on acetate, slap it on top of a photosensitized plate, shoot it, and throw it in the nitric acid, and it's the same thing.
Wow. Thank you.
So, yeah, you're welcome.
Is there anybody? I can take just one more last question. Okay.
Hello, Bruce.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Thanks
I'm
for-
just wondering too. I've traveled to Korea a few times, and when I went there, it was mostly focusing on Korean art, which is, at least to me, seemed predominantly about ceramics, the Koryu ceramics and things like that. But yeah, I remember going to SVA 20 years ago and having a mild amount of Korean students, but now they're growing in size. When you go to teach in Korea, is there any sort of language barrier, and are they just looking specifically for, do you know when like etching was kind of introduced in Korean arts? I mean, is it?
I really don't know. But I know I only went to teach in Korea one time. It was intensive. So I have the one experience. I was there for almost 2 weeks, and I worked with a group of 20 students like every day. So I met them. But they're some of the best etchers I've had. They're fantastic. They work really hard. They're really talented. And some of them come out of school and are super achievers. There was a gal named, do you know Taeun Yu?
Not sure.
Taeun Yu graduated from the School of Visual Arts about 4 or 5 years ago. She did her senior thesis project for the master's program at the School of Visual Arts with etchings. And right now she's like a really famous children's book illustrator. She's not the only one. I mean, she lives in America. She's a famous children's book illustrator. She gets invited to colleges to talk and things like that. She's, really highly accomplished, and she's not the only one. So I don't, I'd have to look that up. I don't know how long woodblock print is entrenched in old world history of Asia. The development of the woodblock print. Etching was developed traditionally in the middle of Europe, in Germany and with Dürer and in Holland with Rembrandt in the center of Europe. But I'm sure that people in Korea have been printmaking for a while because they got some terrific etchers. And also, while I was there, that guy Chung Woo Nam, the guy who curated the Korean side, he has a studio in Seoul. It's a beautiful studio, and we actually worked in his studio. I took my students to his studio to work. So, and some of the students who are graduating, they get out of school and they want to continue to work, and they go into Korea and they ask me, do you know a place in Korea where I can sign up and do etchings? And I'm sending them back to him. But I would have to look that up. But again, ancient tradition, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, I don't think anybody in Asia was doing etchings. That's my opinion. If anybody has information to the contrary, please correct me.
Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? I think you should all go to, if you haven't been to Korea, everybody should go. It's an amazing, it's really an amazing country, really. All right. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for this, Bruce. And then thanks again for joining our program tonight. And also, put aside this art program, we have so many good event and program all the time. So please, I hope looking forward to seeing you again with another program in the future. Okay, thanks again.